Welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're excited that you are willing to help us with the annual Kitsap County Point-in-Time Count. The Point-in-Time Count, or PIT count, is important to give us a snapshot of the population of people living without stable housing or experiencing homelessness during a particular time each year in Kitsap County. The information collected by this survey is important to the people we serve, our service providers, legislators, and our community. Volunteers are an important piece of collecting this information by getting community members like you involved in reaching out and talking directly to people experiencing homelessness. First, we'll start with a little bit of history and background about the point-in-time count, such as what is the point-in-time count? Who participates in the count? Why do we perform the count, and when is the count? The goals of the count, and what are the benefits that this data provides for our county? The point-in-time count is a federal housing and urban development, or HUD, mandate. In Washington state, the Homeless Housing and Assistance Act requires that each county in Washington state conduct an annual point-in-time count of sheltered and unsheltered homeless persons. These are requirements for communities receiving federal and state dollars that serve homeless families and individuals. When is the count? The count signifies a single period of time from sunset to sunrise, which spans 2 actual dates. The count is required to be held within the last 10 days of January. In Washington, this is typically planned for the last Thursday of the month. We are seeking to know where people were staying Wednesday night into Thursday morning. The goal of the point-in-time count is to help identify and capture information about individuals and families in Kitsap County that are experiencing homelessness. The point-in-time count helps to capture critical data about our community and to help adjust our social service delivery system. It helps to understand the demographics of households experiencing homelessness, including groups such as veterans, children and youth, and those that are experiencing chronic homelessness. It helps the community when applying for federal, state, and local grants. And the better that we do our count, the better case we can make to receive the assistance needed to help people experiencing homelessness. Who is counted in the point-in-time count? The count consists of 2 primary categories, sheltered and unsheltered. People counted as sheltered for the purpose of the count are individuals or households that are residing in emergency shelters or transitional housing, doubled up or staying with friends and family, or in institutions such as hospitals, the detox, or jail. People counted as unsheltered are individuals or households staying out of doors, in the woods, on the streets in tents, etc., people living in abandoned buildings, living in their vehicles, or people living in RVs or boats, which lack basic amenities such as drinking water, restrooms, heat, ability to cook hot food, or the ability to bathe. Places where we might go to count people living unsheltered would be parks and alleys, downtown streets, under overpasses and bridges, along waterfront areas, parking lots by big box stores such as Walmart and Safeway, libraries and post offices, busy intersections where people might be asking for donations, at food banks and other social service providers, on buses or at transit centers such as the ferry docks, at campgrounds, at encampments in tent cities, emergency rooms, abandoned buildings, areas outlying cities, gas stations and mini-marts, and outside or near 24-hour establishments. For persons or households that are temporarily staying with family or friends or at institutions, persons living temporarily with family or friends due to loss of housing or economic hardship, they may be couch surfing or doubled up. These do not meet the HUD definition of homelessness, but in Kitsap County, we collect this information to help identify the needs for housing and services for these groups. Persons that are in hospitals, detox facilities, and other facilities in the jail are not considered homeless per HUD definition, but we also collect information from these groups where possible. So who is counted? The count does not require rigorous screening to determine if a person is homeless. Persons who self-identify as living without stable housing should be counted. Who is not counted? Individuals or families that pay rent or own their own home, are paying for their own motel stay, or living in a functioning RV or boat. What to expect when you engage persons to survey? You may be a bit apprehensive if you are going into places where people are living and not sure how they will respond. Many people are willing to share their story and want to be heard. A few individuals may not be willing to speak with you, and we need to be respectful. If you approach people with respect and dignity, they will usually respond positively and want to help. Follow their cues. The person you're interviewing may be willing to share their whole story. Listen respectfully and let them know that you hear what they're saying. If the person that you're interviewing is only willing to provide some information, accept what you can. If they are unwilling to share, there are still a few pieces of information we can still collect. What is shared with you is their story of what they need and how long they've been experiencing homelessness. Be prepared to hear some heartbreaking accounts, stories of hope, and you'll also hear stories of people who are comfortable living out of doors. Approach every person you meet with courtesy and respect. Look them in the eyes and ask for their help. Safety is most important. Stay with your team. If you feel unsafe in a situation, stop and get to safety as quickly as possible. Do not hand people the surveys to fill out. Volunteers should ask questions and fill in each survey. This helps us to collect accurate, legible, and consistent information. If the person you're surveying requests to see the survey, you're certainly welcome to show it. Gather as much information as possible. If someone you are surveying does not wish to participate in the survey or does not answer any of the questions, thank the person, step away, and fill in a survey with at least the following information: the current location where you encountered the person, the living situation where they stayed overnight if you can tell, their gender, and an estimated age or year of birth. Required fields on the form are highlighted with a thick double border. If a person does not wish to participate, these are the minimum required fields needed for the purposes of the count. Make every effort to collect names and birthdays. Names and birthdays help us to ensure that we count each person only once, even if they happen to complete the survey more than one time. After collecting all the information on the survey, the final step is to sign for consent. Information from these forms are entered into the Washington State Homeless Management Information System, or HMIS. This database has strict security policies to protect privacy. Client's name and personal identifying information will not be included in any reports or publications. This information is only aggregated for analysis. Clients must sign the release in Section E on the front side of the Unsheltered or Living with Family packet to include their information for the count purposes. If clients do not give their consent, or if the signature is forgotten, if clients are fleeing domestic violence, then the surveys will only be entered without identifying information. This information will include only approximated year of birth, gender, and location of the survey. If clients wish to give consent but do not wish to sign the form for social distancing or another reason that they provide, a box is provided to indicate that the client provided verbal consent. Please check the box and enter the date. Collect signatures wherever possible. Below we have provided some sample greeting dialogue. If you would prefer to ask this question in a different way that's more natural for you, you're certainly welcome to do so. Hello, my name is blank. I'm a volunteer working with our community to collect information about people living without stable housing so that we can do a better job of providing the kinds of housing and services that are needed. Would you be willing to talk to me for a few minutes as I fill out this survey form? If the person responds positively that they will help, thank them for doing so, and ask if they have completed the survey with another volunteer earlier this week. Ask them where did you or where will you stay on the night of the count, and have you or anyone in your household been continuously without housing for a year or more. Then continue with the rest of the questions on the survey. If the person does not respond or negatively responds that they do not want to participate, thank them for their help, step away, and fill out the following information: location, both questions A and B on the form, their gender, and estimated age or year of birth. Here are some clarifications on questions and more details about the questions that are asked on the point in time count. In Section A, location where survey was given. Note the location where the household took the survey. Businesses, landmarks, cross streets, something identifiable. Outreach teams will have maps. If it's too difficult to describe on the form where the person was surveyed, indicate on the map that you are given and return the map with the surveys. Also include the name of the surveyor. Please write clearly so that we may contact you if there are any questions or clarifications needed. Section B collects information about where the person is staying on the night of the count. Check or circle the best answer that matches their description. Where did the person stay? The time period that we're looking for on this is Wednesday night through Thursday morning. Note that jail and shelter are also provided here if needed, but are not considered meeting the criteria for being unsheltered for the purposes of the point in time count. For people that are living in boats or RVs, there requires a differentiation as to whether that would be considered sheltered or unsheltered for the purpose of the count. RVs and boats can be considered living unsheltered if they lack basic amenities, such as drinking water, restrooms, heat, the ability to cook hot food, or the ability to bathe. For RVs and boats, a distinguishing factor as to whether the RV or boat is designed to be lived in, and if those facilities are degraded to the point where the RV or boat could not be distinguishable from living in a car. We don't want to get into asking if the RV or boat is fully functioning for living, but if it looks severely degraded or non-functional, it should be considered unsheltered. Section C asks questions about the length of time without stable housing. These questions are used to determine if the household is experiencing chronic homelessness. Question C1. Have you or anyone in your household been continuously without housing for a year or more? If the answer is yes, you can skip to question C4 below. If the answer is no, ask them approximately how long and continue to the next question. Question C2. Have you or anyone in the household been without housing 4 or more times in the last 3 years? If the answer is yes, proceed to the next question. If the answer is no, move next to Section D for household information. Question C3. Do these times without housing, added together, amount to a year or more? Indicate yes or no. And finally, question C4. If any person who answered yes to either C1 or C3 have a disability, indicate yes or no. Section D collects information about the household. Each member of a household should be listed in the household information section. A single person is considered a household, i.e., a household consisting of one person. So single individuals should complete the household information section. In D1, household makeup, mark if the household is without children, with adults and children, or only children. In D2, last known permanent city or zip code, ask the person what was the last place they had a stable home, and record the zip code if possible. If they don't know the zip code, leave it blank. Section D3 collects the first name and last name. Please print clearly. Generally, the first person you survey is the head of the household, but it does not really matter which adult. In D4, collect the birth date. If a full birth date is refused, then the year of birth is okay. Or a surveyor can make an estimate for the person's age if they've not been able to interview the person. Section D5 collects information about population data, including their gender, race, and ethnicity. For gender, ask, what gender do you identify as? Enter M for male, F for female, T for transgender, or D for gender nonconforming. You may enter R for refused, if they so refuse. For race, ask what race or races do you identify as? Enter all that apply. Ethnicity, ask do you consider yourself to be Hispanic? Ethnicity may only be entered as H for Hispanic or N for non-Hispanic. Note, we're required to ask these federal definitions, and they can sometimes be offensive to individuals who don't identify this way. Ask if the person is fleeing domestic violence. If anyone in the household says yes, do not have them sign the release at the bottom in Section E. Mark yes or no for this question. Veteran, ask have you ever served in the U.S. military? Their discharge status does not matter. All that matters pertaining to this question is if somebody has served in the military. If they have, they're considered a veteran. Mark yes or no. Section D6 collects information about disabilities that apply to each person. Ask, do any of these apply to you? And read off the following: chronic substance abuse, permanent physical disability, developmental disability, substantial and long-term mental health condition, or a chronic health condition which is permanently disabling. Enter all that apply. You may answer these as yes or no for each question. If a household member has no disabilities, please check none apply. If these questions are left blank, we'll assume that the questions were not asked or not answered. Flip the page and continue on to sections F and G. Section F is about the circumstances leading to your housing status. As the person communicates their story to you and they tell you what's happened, they will likely have answered some of these questions for you. If they have not directly answered it, you can ask these questions aloud. Check all that apply. Section G asks for sources of household income and benefits. Ask the person if they receive any public assistance like TANF, Social Security Disability, VA benefits, unemployment, Medicaid, Medicare. Check all that apply. Ask the person if they're employed. If so, check off if it's full-time, part-time, or farm work or seasonal. Ask if the person has other income. Note, if the person describes income or benefits not included in the list, go ahead and write these on the form. After completing the survey, the final step is to have each adult sign for consent. Ask the person to look over the Kitsap client release of information on the back of the form. You may ask them, we'd like to include your information in a database that helps us collect information into reports for our funders. We will never release your name or personally identifying information to the public. Would you be willing to help us by signing this release? The information gathered here is entered into the Washington State Homeless Information Management System, or HMIS. This database has strict security policies to protect privacy. A client's name and personally identifying information will not be included in any reports or publications. Information is only aggregated for analysis. They may refuse to sign the release form if they do not want their personally identifying information entered into the database. They should not sign if they are currently fleeing domestic violence, sexual assault, or stalking situation, or under 13 years of age. The surveyed person must sign the release in Section E to include their information in the count. If the person does not give consent, or if the signature is forgotten, the survey will be entered, but without identifying information. This will include only approximated year of birth, gender, and location of the survey. Kitsap Local Questions. There is an additional sheet of questions to ask the head of household. These questions are voluntary, but will help our county collect more useful information about families and individuals experiencing homelessness or unstable housing in Kitsap County. Questions 1 through 3 can be filled out by the surveyor. These are included in the event that the questions are somehow separated from their PIT form. You may write notes in the margins. Question 10 asks if the household has requested housing assistance in Kitsap. If the answer is yes, proceed to question 11A. If no, answer question 11B. Fill out either 11A or 11B, but not both. You are finished. You have now completed your survey. please do the following. Thank the person for their time, their help, and for sharing their story. Offer the individual or family handouts if you have any on hand. You can also provide a copy of the Sally's Guide and Veterans Resource Guide if appropriate. And finally, return all your completed survey forms to your team leader, or return to the Housing and Homelessness Program as soon as possible. The address and the return date are listed in the upper right-hand corner of the form. Thank you for volunteering your time and efforts to help Kitsap County conduct the annual point-in-time count. We hope that you will find this to be a rewarding experience and hope that you will join us again in the future. Thank you, thank you, thank you.